Hello everybody, this is Short again.
And hello from Stockholm, Sweden. This is Kjell again.
Yeah, the last time we were talking about decisions and complex issues, problems, and how what kind of difficulties and pitfalls organizations may have about it. But I think we have some other concepts. They are so deeply embedded when it comes to procurement processes, for instance. So how easier it would be to actually change decision-making methodologies and for instance, procuring IT capacities, development capacities, right?
Indeed, I mean, this is more a general IT problem, but of course you run into this when you try to develop new tools. And IT development has had a very, very rapid change. I actually started in using computers in mid-60s as a student. And at that time, I would describe a IT developer as an artist. And you developed something, and people had to be very pleased to what you did. It was like if the customer ordered a painting where he wanted to have a sunset with some roe deers grazing in the front and so on, but you decided that you wanted to develop a Picasso picture. He has to be satisfied with what you decided because you were the artist and you decided. Today, IT development is really, really different, and is also such an important part of the business today. That's why IT procurement has become very, very important too.
So what do we understand under IT procurement? Where do you see actually difficulties? It's not buying computers as such. It's more.
No, it is a complex item, but if I should make a comparison, if you were building a house, normally you have a very perfect drawing to what you want to build, so that's a difference. And when you build IT systems, normally you don't. But if you were building a house in the same way that we do build systems, you would start out by having a sort of a rough idea what you wanted to build, how many rooms and so on, but not in detail. But the first thing you would do is to go out there and try to hire carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and you would ask them for CVs, and then you would hire them on an hourly base, and then you would start building. This is very much today how we build IT systems. We're looking for consultants because we don't have the internal resources, and we're looking for CVs, and we're trying to put together a development team. And it's no problem that a lot of IT projects is a complete failure or disasters.
Yeah, I also read that globally it's more than 70% of all IT processes or projects fail somehow. Some fail in time, some others fail in costs and so on, and around 20-25% goes down completely to drain. So they get collapsed.
As planned, more or less.
So, but why do you think companies decide to act like this? Because I mean,
I think that once again they don't have the full picture and the process ready. And I think, first of all, the development process in software, first of all, a software product is never finished. It's not like a house. A house, it is finished, and then you need some sort of maintenance.
Our house will never be finished.
So. Well, okay then, nowadays, maybe you have to redo the kitchen every 10th year, but it basically doesn't need a lot of improvements. But a software system needs to improve with the changes in the business because it's part of your business. And that's why it needs to be changed. And that has to be understood from the start. And very, very seldom or rarely do you know exactly what you have to develop. So a normal software development process starts that you develop some sort of proof of concept to see that the technical difficulties are solved and so on, that you can actually prove that it's feasible to develop this. Once you have done that, you do a minimum viable product to sort of demonstrate that it works. And after the minimum viable product, you will start to have release 1 until release 257 or whatever.
Yes.
And then the system will die. That's a process, that's a normal development process of a piece of software.
Okay. But I mean, if companies are recruiting only coders or developers, person by person, cherry picking, then actually what they do is they keep the most difficult part inside on their own part, or in their own shoulders. The project management, the product development, or the project administration, everything stays as a burden within the company, doesn't it? So it's
it does. You take on a lot of responsibilities here. And I mean, exactly as when you're building a house, you probably hire an electricity company to do the electric installations and a carpenting company to do the carpenting and so on. In the same way here, you could buy full teams for specific tasks. And it's also that when you develop your software, as I said, you very rarely has a clear picture of what you want to develop. That's why it is nowadays we say that we're working in Agile environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way you should procure it as well. So you could sort of buy a certain number of sprints, Agile sprints. That means if you buy, it could be 10 working days or 20 working days or 5 working days. And you have a specific goal for that sprint.
Kind of milestones in the project?
And milestones
Yes.
synchronized with that. But that also means that you can take new decisions. You probably need to buy a bunch of these sprints, say 10 sprints at the same time, and you procure this, and you see that development follows your plan, and you probably, I would recommend to buy whole development teams.
When you said that you've been around IT developments for 50-something years, right?
Correct.
So it's that's quite a history. What is the difference, between the way today companies need IT services or IT development, and when you started back in the old analog? It was more analog world, right?
Well, actually, I started because I studied civil engineering, and I was a lazy bastard, and I found out that just to calculate one low-pass filter could take 2 days, using the slide roller. And first of all, you calculate it, and then you recalculate it, and did get a different result, and then you have to recalculate again. So I found out it was Fortran at that time, so we wrote a little Fortran program to sort this mathematical problem out. But it was basically something that only concerned me or my colleagues, or a very limited amount of people who were involved. And if there were any errors, you corrected them on the fly. And
Yes.
somebody was using the software and there was an error, they just called me and say, "Hey, Shell, this is wrong. I tried to calculate P and it's turned out to be 3.25. It's something wrong here." But nowadays it's sort of a part of a system, and system development is done much more in a team. And most of the time you also have testing involved in the development team. And as you have development team, when I started, I was a little bit offended if somebody wanted to look at my code.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, I also remember that most of the time when I couldn't find a fault in my code, if I tried to explain it to my colleague, I understood the error immediately. My colleague didn't understood anything. But this is the way you do peer reviewing today, and you're also working in teams, and you also today as a developer you have to be much more open. You have a stand up in the morning, and then you discuss if you have a problem, you have your colleagues, you rely on your colleagues, and you find out and you go on working. It's no way to be this high shot and this fantastic guru who can develop anything, because you can't. You have to rely on your colleagues. And my experience is that the maximum size of such effective development teams is about 12 people, 10, 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to run parallel teams, because the internal communication is just killing all all progress if you have two large teams.
But do you think it's also connected to the pace of technological development? I mean, we all know that the world is just crazy. So it's
yes, for some strange reason, people don't use Fortran or COBOL anymore. I don't know why. And actually, this fast development is that we are building on previous experiences, and you're introducing larger and larger building blocks. And if you were to try to execute some of these modern software on the computers I started with, it wouldn't be possible. They wouldn't fit. So today we can waste a lot of machine resources in order to simplify life for a coder. Very, very frequently when I had tricky problems, you had to go back to machine language, more or less, or machine code, to do it efficiently, because the compilers were too slow. Nowadays you use much huger blocks, and you need this communication in the development team. And this, I've done sailing and ice hockey as a sport, and all of these are team efforts. And exactly, a development team is like ice hockey. I've normally played left defense. I could be the best defender in the whole world, and the rest of the team would lousy. We would still lose.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to get this team. And I believe if you need external resources, it's probably much more efficient to procure complete teams.
But that also puts the client back in the driver's seat, no? Because the clients can have much tighter control on the processes, because there are deliveries. So every time, every milestone is delivered, demonstrated, accepted, discussed, whatever. So it's not like, okay, I have an idea, I made a technical description, go away, come back in 2 years and give me the ready-made solution. And then after 2 years you realize that, oh, this whole thing went into completely wrong direction, and then the whole thing is just unbanged. With the Agile process you have more control, no? So that's also a kind of
I think
advantage.
A lot of people agree on this Agile process, but they haven't followed it through because they have not adjusted the procurement process accordingly.
Oh. So you think that this kind of Agile transformation and digitization of processes somehow is just kind of checked by using some tools of the whole concept and not applying the entire methodology.
No, it needs to affect the whole process, of course, even the procurement and so on. And it's also, if you take on the burden of procuring each individual, you're also very, very sensitive. If you lose one person there in the team, you need to introduce another person into that team, and that's your responsibility. If you have procured the whole team, that will be the responsibility of the supplier. And you're not depending on individuals anymore. So I think the whole procurement process for software development has to change.
Okay, and what do you think preference can do about it? Do you have any, do you have any methodology, or do you have any, pool of people, or what is your approach? So how do you actually deal with this kind of
we can help you to find pool of people. If you want to procure the whole teams, we can provide you with whole teams, and that's the preferred way that we would do it. To listen into your requirements, and actually these people need to have, first of all, they need to master the technical stack that the client is using. And today we have two main streams, it's Java.net, more or less. And adding on to that, then you need to have the executing, have they been working on AWS or GVS or Azure, so they are familiar with the technical environment. And these are part of the requirements, and then it needs to work as a complete team. And I can see that we could help you out with development teams. We are not so much into DevOps. That's perhaps not our best competence, but we have other companies who are capable in that area.
DevOps means system engineering, right?
Yeah, it's actually, to get any code into production. And this is another thing which is very strange. If you look at the huge banks in Sweden and so on, they perhaps has 1 or 2 deployments every year. And of course, that's an anachronism. I mean, we live in a very, very rapid changing environment, and to change things once or twice a year, that's not really feasible anymore.
Okay. So you mean that this constant delivery and rapid deployment is actually the key of successful IT developments, right?
Sure. Well, it depends on your business. If you're running a business who doesn't change at all, then you can live in.
I heard that, talking with different guys and, businesses, you listen quite often that decision makers, they go bananas hearing that all the data should move into cloud. All the solution has to, they say, no, that is not safe. Anything is in the cloud. That is not controllable anymore. Let's keep everything on our own, servers and so on. So what is the difference? Or what could you recommend for these people?
I think that to control your software, that's up to you really, where you store and keep your source code and keep that updated, and how you update the source code and how you deploy and so on. If this is run on your own servers or if it is run on other services, the advantage of not having your own server is that there's a lot of work just keeping updating and defending from viruses and attacks. If you buy that as a service. And when I started with computing, some people, visionaries, said that computing will be like electricity in the future. It's something you just plug it in and it's there. And at that time I thought, that will be the day. But we are there now. I mean, computing is more or less like you plug it in. You have no idea what make the servers are. You have some idea what operating systems they are on, but you said it's just as a service. If you like to take the burden of keeping your service updated and so on, but it's a huge task today. And to be standing still and just keeping what you have, that's not an option. Because then very soon you will lose all your data for some virus. Yes,
that is exponentially valid for the clients, right? So for the businesses who run actually who have sensitive data, I mean, most of the people say, we have very unique and sensitive data that nobody has, and the safer the safer we want to keep, the stronger machines we will buy and so on. But on the other hand, they don't see that all the scalability and flexibility of cloud services can actually serve even security issues better than local servers, right?
I must say that yes, because they have a lot of methods and they have full-time many employees and many tools to protect the service farms. And if you are to implement that on yourself, it's a huge burden. I'm not advocating.
If somebody would like to steal my secrets, it is much more difficult to do it from cloud, right?
Correct. It's a lot easier to infiltrate, and it's so easy to infiltrate your service because there is always a weak backdoor as you haven't thought of. This is a different aspect as we could talk a lot about, how to make sure that you have a safe environment. But I have never ever gone into any customer without finding out severe security holes in the structure, because it's never ever where they think it is. It's always somewhere else in some other systems. And not everybody is nice out there. There are evil people trying to get in.
Yes.
Not only to save money, just to make trouble.
Yes, and I'm not talking about your competitors. I mean, if you have your own server, which is a lot more fragile and exposed to attacks than the server parks at cloud services, then your business is much more, exposed to direct danger.
I would say so, definitely.
Okay.
So I think there is a lot of things here to be learned, but I think that, well, the key point which I'm trying to make is that if you believe in agile development, which I think most people today say they are, then you also need to adapt your procurement process as well. And I think still, if you talk to consultancy company in the software business, the majority of the deals they have is that they have a request for a C# developers. Can you provide a CV with this guy, and can I hire him, and what's the hourly rate? That's not a good way of procuring it.
So if let's say if I'm a business owner, let's say I have a central warehouse somehow, I'm doing logistic business, and I would like to digitize my logistical processes better than ever. How do I start with you? So what is my task? What should I do?
Well, first of all, and this is something also somewhat missing in the IT industry, you need to talk to an IT architect first, because you need to draw up the...
Let's say I find you on the internet. Oh, here is Shell and his company preference. Let's call them. How the whole process would start?
The whole process will start with that we listen to what your requirements are, what your wishes are. And then you maybe already have an IT architect or a structure as you want to implement it in. Otherwise, you need to have some sort of architect drawing up the basics of the system, and the rough idea how the system looks like. And then I would go ahead and formulate the teams that could develop the MVP, where we tackle the technical difficulties, as we may see, the proof of concept, where we tackle the technical difficulties as we may see. And then you could procure the development of the MVP, minimum viable product, where people could start to try it out. And once that is up and running, the next step would be to order development of version 1.0 in sort of agile steps.
So the MVP is already a working chunk of the full.
That should be a working chunk, not with all the facilities, but it should be able for users to test the idea and to start using it. Yes. Okay.
So if I'm say, oh, this is I'm playing now the logistic guy. Oh, this sounds pretty cool, but I have in deliveries 24/7. How can I switch off my system so that your development takes over? So will I have any business interruption because of the software development?
You cannot do that, because you need at least three environments. You need a development environment set up, and of course here is a cloud option, very, very easy to do. You need a test environment where you can do it, and then you need the environment where you actually deploy the system. So you need these three environments.
But basically this practically means that the whole change would be smoothly executed, so my business is not disturbed.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's
very, very. If you go to a store today and the computers are down and you want to buy milk, and if the system is down, you can't. I mean, most businesses are like that today. It's 24/7 and you cannot stop it.
Okay. So I can be calm, so I contact you and I contract you, and you will solve my problem whatsoever. All I have to do is that teaching you how my business is working, and all the rest you will solve with your team, right? Or no?
It needs to be a cooperation, of course, and I cannot take the burden of your business. But it would be nice, I think, either you have great IT competence in-house, and maybe you can take on the majority of the work yourself, and in that case it will be a combined effort. But it has to be very clear what part of this effort each part is responsible for.
Okay.
If you do not have a huge inline department, and actually most customers only have this sort of day-to-day operation, what we call DevOps capabilities. They don't really have development capabilities in-house.
Yes. So actually, I can be sure that if I'm, aboard with you together in the development team, or I have my people there, I can build in my future dreams into the development, saying that I will probably buy, I don't know, fully robotized forklifts in 5 years. Can you make the software so that it can, based on IoT technologies, because I heard this fancy phrase. So based on IoT, my forklifts will be driven by the system, so it will be fully robotized and so on. So I can build in my dreams, right?
You can build your dreams, but I would say that what we will start with is this proof of concept, as I said, where we will test that the techniques is there to develop what we want to do. And if the technique not yet is there, I suggest you wait until we have a platform where we can develop it. Okay. And of course we will try to develop all your dreams, but start with this proof of concept that we are sure that we have the technique to develop what you want.
So this is the beauty of the Agile procedures, right? So that I can add all the time newer inputs as I learn by the development and learn by running the business. And this is something that the Agile development team can build into development technologies, right?
Sure. And this is the nature of it, because when you start to use the system, then you will probably find out what you want to change. I mean, it's very, very difficult to understand all the complicated part of the system before you start to develop it. That's why you need to work in an agile environment.
All right. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. I think this was a very interesting topic. Let's try to, make people understand that selecting the good way of procuring IT development is a crucial event in future success, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we come back later on with further topics. Thank you for listening to us. Have a good day. Bye-bye now.
Yeah. Bye now. Bye from Stockholm.